everything's trying to be extra slow. But anyway, I'll go ahead and get to the notes here, and we'll start in the NFL. Obviously, earlier this week, Kyler Murray officially said that he is 100% dedicated to dedicating his life. He's dedicating his athletic career anyway to football. He said he's out on baseball. He's dedicating it 100% to being a football player. Long run, sustainability, as far as health, baseball is the way to go. But for somebody that's going to be drafted in the first round, to get the quick money, this is where that's where he needs to go, is the NFL, and that's what he's doing. Obviously, after what he said here the other day, I believe it was Monday. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback, but he will probably be drafted in the first round. My next point has to do with him being drafted as well, but he probably will be drafted relatively high, first round, more than likely. Everybody thought Baker wouldn't make it that way. I ended up being a number 1 overall pick. But yeah, Kyler Murray, he has said he's going to be an NFL quarterback. He will be a football player. He's dedicating his life, I believe the way it was put, to being a football player. So baseball is completely out of the question after being signed to, or drafted in the first round of the baseball playoffs. Hold on just a second. This computer's acting extremely wonky at the moment. It keeps trying to do updates. Give me just 2 seconds, because I can tell that the stream it's going up and down, and I'm trying to make it sustainable here. I don't understand. It's literally running the program. That's all I'm running is the OBS, or the broadcast software that puts all these pretty things on the screen for you guys. But no, it looks like it's settled down. But yeah, Kyler Murray said he's dedicating to football. That's where he's going to stay. Now, my next point I said also had to do with that, because there was video of Cliff Kingsbury, the new head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, saying if he had the opportunity, he would take Kyler Murray number 1 overall. Well, he has went back on those remarks this week, and he said Josh Rosen is their guy in Arizona, amongst all the chatter with Kyler Murray and what he said. But we know people like to lie. People will say things. Nick Saban at Alabama, he's not the head coach. He's not the head coach. He's not the head coach. Wake up one of the next mornings, he's the head coach at Alabama. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic moving forward with Kingsbury, Josh Rosen, and that whole thing with Kyler Murray. It would not surprise me if Kyler Murray is drafted number 1 overall by the Cardinals. He can move. He's got a nice arm. Things Cliff Kingsbury can work with. We've seen him work with good quarterbacks, and that's just he's a quarterback guy. Case Keenum in Houston, Johnny Manziel at A&M for 1 year, and then this year's NFL MVP, Patrick Mahomes, all worked with Kingsbury. I still don't like the hire by Arizona. Everybody's too busy searching for the next Sean McVay, and they're just reaching at this point. They only gave the last guy a 1 year and then dumped him. But Kingsbury says Josh Rosen is their guy. We'll see how that goes moving forward. Next, we got Demaryius Thomas. Obviously, he was traded to Houston during the season by the Denver Broncos, where he had spent his entire career. Had played with Peyton Manning, had been one of the top receivers in the league, but he was sent away to the Houston Texans during the season in a mid-season trade. But he has been released by Houston. They're looking at their younger receivers, and they believe it's better to move on without Demaryius Thomas. He also tore his Achilles back in December, and he had a non-guaranteed $14 million contract or salary, whatever you want to say, for 2019. But he says he's not thinking retirement, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I believe he just turned 30, so it'll be interesting to see who wants the services of Demaryius Thomas coming off an Achilles tear. Um, Hard injury to come back from. We saw John Wall last week tore his AC or his Achilles at home, and he's going to be out 12 months. So we'll see where Demaryius Thomas ends up, but he has been. This happened the other day. He has been released by the Houston Texans. They believe in their younger receivers and want to move forward with them. And obviously, they're not on a $14 million, non-guaranteed $14 million, but they're not on a $14 million contract for the 2019 season. We'll move on here to Jeffrey Simmons, projected first-round pick. I think he was going to be drafted in the first round. I think there was pretty much no questions about that. But unfortunately, he tore his left ACL earlier this week training for the draft. He was the number one. I think it was Mel Kiper. He was the number 12 overall prospect, but he had him in the top 10 projected picks. Had him going to Jacksonville at 7. But everybody pretty much has him as a first-round pick. Some people had him in the top 5 after some of the stuff he did in recent weeks. But very sad news for Jeffrey Simmons. He was going to be a step in and start immediately, possibly. But unfortunately, he has torn his ACL, and I don't really know what that means for his draft stock. Does he wait another year and come back for the draft? Does he stay? Does he still stay in this draft and somebody picks him up in hopes that he's going to be good? Last time I remember a top pick tearing their ACL, it was Dante Fowler, but he didn't tear it till he was already with the Jags. Obviously, he's with the LA Rams now, but he didn't tear it until he was already with his team that drafted him in the top 5. So it'll be interesting to see. Projected top 10 pick, top 15 prospect, Jeffrey Simmons, he's out. Will be out next season with a torn ACL. The biggest news out of the NFL, Antonio Brown has officially asked to be traded. Everything that's been going on there, drama in the locker room, things of that nature have caused a rift with him and Big Ben and people like that. So, in the team in general, with the coach. So, they've decided to move on, separate. But he's asked to be released or to be traded from the Steelers. There's no telling what the asking price is going to be on him. It's going to be extremely high. Obviously, he still has several years left at a high level. He's in his 30s now, so he's still got 3 or 4 years probably before he starts to make the wear and tear on his body starts to make a downturn. But I'm really interested to see what they're going to ask for Antonio Brown. But he has officially requested for a trade. And it came through a tweet. Most people saw the tweet first. But he tweeted a thank you to the Steelers, basically saying, "Thank you, Steeler Nation, for a big 9 years. Time to move on and move forward." So he gave his thank you to the Steelers. He's obviously spent his 9-year career with the Steelers to this point, all 9 years of his NFL career. But like I said, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what they ask for and what they receive for Antonio Brown. Obviously, they want to move forward with Juju Smith-Schuster. He's shown that he can be 1,000-yard. He can be a number 1 guy for them. Even with Antonio Brown, they both caught over 100 passes this year. They both had over 1,000 yards. So they're invested in Juju, still paying him not near as much as they're paying Antonio Brown. But last year, Antonio Brown had 104 receptions on 168 targets, 1,297 yards, 15 touchdowns. Um, he averaged 12.5 yards per catch. But typical Antonio Brown stats, over 1,000 yards. Nobody was surprised. For his career, he's got 837 catches on 1,274 targets, 11,207 yards, 74 career touchdowns. He also has 31 rush attempts for 119 yards. But so somebody's going to get a big time receiver. I know a lot of people have been talking about San Francisco with Jimmy G coming back. So they have the quarterback they want. Could they have the number one superstar wide receiver that they think they may need? They have George Kittle, was one of the tops, if not the top tight end in the league this year. It was a huge, huge surprise for the 49ers. Big time player for them this past season. But Antonio Brown has asked to be let out of Pittsburgh. So we'll see where he ends up this offseason. Other big news that happened Wednesday, I believe it was Wednesday, Joe Flacco has been traded to the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are going for win now status. They pick up a former Super Bowl MVP. They've got receivers that they like. Obviously, Emmanuel Sanders. He got hurt late in the season, unfortunately for them. But they've got Emmanuel Sanders, who's one of the top receivers in the league. They've got the running backs they want. They've got a defense that they want. So it's going to be very nice to see if Flacco can get back on track. Because let's be honest, ever since he won that MVP and went and got paid, won the Super Bowl MVP and went and got paid, he has not been good at all. Honestly, he has not been very good at all for Baltimore. And obviously in Baltimore, that makes it obvious that they're committed to Lamar Jackson, which I believe was already pointed out, are already very obvious. He took over the starting job last year from Joe Flacco, so it made it very obvious that Flacco was pretty much done as the starter in Baltimore, and it was all about Lamar Jackson moving forward for the Ravens. But who knows how long he'll last if he keeps running the ball the way he does. But back to the Flacco trade. He can't officially be traded till the 13th, so some things could pop up between now and March 13th. I can't even speak. Can't even get it out. Spit it out. Spit it out. But it can't be processed till the new league year begins on March 13th. Teams can't comment on the deal or the terms, but obviously people have inside sources. They figure things out some way, somehow these days before anybody even knows what's going on. But yeah, like I said, that officially means Lamar Jackson. The Ravens are committed to him as a starting quarterback. The Ravens, it says, will save $10.5 million in cap space, but they'll carry $16 million in dead money on their 2019 cap. The Broncos, they have the 10th overall pick, so they've addressed quarterback questions. Case Keenum was the starter there this past season. So obviously they're trying to look to use their 10th pick on something else other than a quarterback. We'll just have to see. But you've got 4 other quarterbacks that are known, that are expected to be changing teams this offseason, and Nick Foles, Ryan Tannehill, Tyrod Taylor, who was with the Browns before Mayfield took over last year. Obviously he was still with the Browns, but he's a free agent. And then Blake Bortles. I don't think Bortles will get too much. We'll have too many calls, but we'll just have to see. He'll be a backup somewhere. Obviously, he won't be a starter. And Tannehill, I'll be honest, I didn't really know that Tannehill was on the outs with, was going to be probably getting moved out of Miami. But it says he's expected not to return. So that's an interesting tidbit there. I wonder who they're going to use. I wouldn't expect them to use I forgot his name. I'm sorry, but uh, he's had a bunch of controversy here the last couple years. I wouldn't say controversy, but he's been moving around, and once he bailed, he helped lead the Broncos to the Super Bowl, in which they won. Um, but Miami, they could be in the play uh, for somebody like Nick Foles. Osweiler, Brock Osweiler is who I was thinking of. But yeah, it says Tannehill's not expected back, but that was about Flacco and him being traded to the Denver Broncos. Let's see what else is here. Another little NFL little tidbit. Todd Grantham, he's the Florida Gators defensive coordinator. He turned down the Bengals defensive coordinator job. Oh, this is what I wanted to talk about. The Raiders, the Oakland Raiders, rumored. There's some rumored locations or places that are really trying to draw the Raiders in and try to make the Raiders try to be a home for the Raiders for one season. Let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find the article that I had. There was an article that had a bunch of the rumored locations for the Raiders because the city of Oakland wants them out. You're leaving us. We don't want you here using our venues uh, to play football. I believe it's here. Yeah. So here are some of the random places that the Raiders uh, could play. So these are all rumored locations. Obviously, Oakland is still part of it. Um, you got San Francisco. They were believed to be talking about the Giants, talking to the Giants about using AT. I believe it's still AT&T. Is it in San Francisco? The San Francisco Giants, the baseball stadium. Um, Glendale, Arizona. Uh, Tucson, Arizona. Santa Clara, California. London has been passed around, but one which is interesting to me because this city's only an hour down the road is Birmingham. Birmingham is making a play, trying to get some um, some power behind possibly bringing in the Raiders for this next season. It's hilarious. I don't see it at all. I think it would be a big disaster with there's a bunch of construction going on in Birmingham right now with interstate systems and stuff like that, which is already a headache. I could only imagine if they brought an NFL franchise to play in that old Legion Field for a season. It would be quite funny to see, but those were just some of the places that are rumored to be passed around. But I will talk about the AAF. So the AAF kicked off last week. Not only did it kick off and it was on TV, they beat the NBA in ratings on opening night on that Saturday, and it wasn't just a regular NBA game on ABC. It was the Thunder playing the Rockets. It was Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Paul George, Chris Paul. They beat them. They had more people watching them than that game had people watching it, which I can see why, because the NBA is NBA. Nobody really pays attention to the playoffs these days. It's getting much like hockey. Nobody really pays a whole lot of attention until it's playoff time. Uh, but you had the opening night. You had two games. You had the San Antonio Commanders take down the San Diego Fleet 15-6. And then you had Steve Spurrier's team, the Orlando Apollos, absolutely destroy the Atlanta Legends 40-6. And those were the first two games on Saturday night. The Birmingham Iron, they shut out the Memphis Express, the first shutout in AAF history. Obviously, it was the first game for all eight of these teams. But the Iron, they shut down the Express 26-0. Everybody knows Trent Richardson, one of the biggest busts in recent memory. He scored 2 touchdowns in that game, and there's a lot of buzz around the league. People are paying attention. It's going to be, like I said last week. It's more of a it's going to be brought as more of a minor league for the NFL. People that just are on the cusp could go to this league and show that they might deserve to be on a roster, or things of that nature, or on in the CFL. Each team has so many colleges that are designated to them, and NFL teams and Canadian Football League teams. They all have things. They all have teams that are dedicated to them. That players, if they get cut by those teams, have to go play for this team. But it's very interesting. I only got to watch a few minutes of a couple of the games. I will definitely be able to watch this weekend. I will be watching the AAF games this weekend to really see. But from what I gathered and saw, it's exciting. People like it. People really didn't notice the kickoffs or pay much attention to the kickoffs not being in play, and the extra points. The 2-point conversions, I think a lot of people like just because it's a little more exciting to watch than an extra point. Uh, they can kick field goals in this league. uh, there were some a lot of well-known. Uh, what am I trying to get at here? There's a lot of known kickers. Like Nick Novak plays for Birmingham. He played in the league for 10 years. I believe he played with San Diego. Like a lot of people know who Nick Novak is. Nick was it or was it Folk was in the league? I don't remember. Uh, but there's obviously a bunch of names that you recognize and some that you don't recognize. So it puts spotlight on people that it puts a spotlight on people that people have never heard of. But this weekend's games, I'll go ahead and go down the schedule for this weekend. Tomorrow, the first game will be Salt Lake at Birmingham, at 1 Central Time. So you'll have to adjust accordingly. But tomorrow, 1 Central Time, you have the Salt Lake Stallions taking on the Birmingham Iron in Birmingham at Legion Field on TNT. If you want to watch it on TV, it will be on TNT. You got Arizona headed to Memphis to take on the Express. The Express didn't put any points on the board last week at Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium in Memphis. That'll be at 7 o'clock Central Time on the NFL Network. You have Orlando headed to San Antonio at the Alamo Dome to take on the Commanders. You have the Apollos taking on the Commanders at 3 o'clock on Sunday, 3 o'clock Central Time on the CBS Sports Network. And then on Sunday, you've got two teams that are 0-1. You got Atlanta and San Diego taking on each other at 7 Central Time on Sunday on the NFL Network, 7 Central. But it'll be really interesting to see. I'll actually get to watch extended amount of these games, unlike last weekend, which it's fun. It's football. Everybody loves more football. We'll have even more spring football next year with the XFL. But if last week was any indication, I mean, obviously fans didn't show up in droves of 50, 60,000. A lot of these teams aren't even playing in stadiums that hold that many people. I think the biggest one is Legion Field for Birmingham because that's literally the only football field in Birmingham. It holds over 60. But some of these stadiums that they're in 30s at the most. I think that's roughly it. There's not any huge stadiums. I think the most attended game was Orlando, and it had roughly 21,000. Birmingham had roughly 18,000, but people showed up. You got to start somewhere, and people showed up on their couch at home watching on TV. Like I said, the ratings were up for this league. Everybody's thirsty for more football, so they got that this year with the AAF, which I said is it's a minor league. It's going to be a minor leagues basically for the NFL is what it looks like. And then we'll have the XFL next year. So they'll be competing with each other. We'll get to see football leagues competing again for the first time in a long time. But it's a different age. I don't know how the XFL is going to sustain, but the AAF is off to a good start. We'll see how they hold up this weekend. But they started immediately after the NFL ended the weekend right after. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch more of those games going forward. This weekend, like I said, it's 8 teams. like I've said before, it's 8 teams. Each is playing 10 games, 4 in each conference, Western and Eastern. The top 2 teams from each conference uh, play in basically a conference championship, and then the 2 winners play for the championship. But I will go ahead and move on to NASCAR, and I guess this will be my last point here. I'm going to talk about NASCAR. I know a lot of people aren't huge NASCAR fans, but unfortunately I am. So you've got the Daytona 500, the biggest race of the year, one of the biggest races in the world, comes up this weekend. The starting lineups, we've got the youngest starting front row ever, 21 and 25 years old, William Byron. Of course, the front row for the 500 is set on qualifying day, which was last Sunday. William Byron had the top time, and his teammate Alex Bowman had the second best time. And then the rest of the field is set based off dual races, which were ran last night. They were relatively clean, not many wrecks, which before, I believe it was last year, there was a lot of wrecks. But the 2 winners of those races, Duel 1, which sets all the odd number starting positions, was won by Kevin Harvick. Also, the people in the front row, they have to race in that race, but their starting position is set unless they wreck or something happens in that dual race or they change something on the car that's not approved. But Kevin Harvick, he won duel number 1 and his number 4, Busch Chevy. Busch is making a comeback in NASCAR. They used to be the lead sponsor for the second series. But anyway, Kevin Harvick won duel 1, and another Ford driver, Joey Logano, won heat 2, or duel 2. But like I said, relatively clean races. Nothing too crazy happened. That will be the big race will be at 2:30 Eastern on Fox. That's at 2:30 Eastern, so 1:30 Central. Will be on Fox on Sunday. Of course, there's 2 other races this weekend as well at Daytona. You have the Gander Outdoors. That is a mouthful to say. You got the Gander Outdoor Truck Series. They will be racing tonight.
What's inside?
Sorry, commercial's trying to play here. They will be racing. Yes, tonight. Qualifying is at 4:40 Eastern, and then the race begins at 7:30 Eastern tonight. The Xfinity Series, that's the second series. They have qualifying at 9:40 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, and we'll go racing at 2:30 Eastern time tomorrow. And then, of course, like I said, big race on Sunday. They have final practice tomorrow at 12:05 Eastern. They have a couple practices today, but final practice is at 12:05 Eastern tomorrow. And then, like I said, Sunday the race will go green at 2:30 Eastern time. Joey Logano is your defending series champion this year. He and like I said, he won duel number 2 last night, so he'll have a good starting position and start off his defense of his 2018 championship. Let's see if there's anything else going on out here. I don't think there's anything too crazy going on. I will. I'll just go over since the NBA is going on right now. I believe, is it All-Star Weekend? Is this weekend? I believe. Yes. So All-Star Weekend is this weekend. You have the World versus USA game tonight. And then you have Team LeBron versus Team Giannis tomorrow, or on Sunday night. Tomorrow you do have, obviously, all the dunk competitions, all those things. All the things of that sort. Which I don't really get into as much as I used to anymore. It's pretty much the same stuff over and over again. But I'll go down the standings one time real quick. But yeah, I guess that's where I'll do the NBA standings headed into All-Star break, and then I'll leave it off there. But excuse me, headed into All-Star break, you have the Milwaukee Bucks are leading the East by 1 game over the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors have played 2 more games, which is weird. It's the All-Star break, but they've played 2 more games than the Bucks have, and they've lost those 2 extra games the Raptors have. So Milwaukee is the 1 seed by 1 game right now in the East. Toronto is the 2. Uh, the Indiana Pacers at 38-20 are the 3. Pretty much the 3 through 5 spots, they change a few times a week, but the Pacers are the 3 right now. The Boston Celtics are the 4, 37-21. And the Sixers are the 5. They are also at 37-21. The Brooklyn Nets are 1 game over 500, and they are the 6 right now in the 6th spot at 30-29. The Hornets, they are 3 games under 500, and they are in the 7th spot. Detroit, the Pistons, are 4 games under 500, and they are in the 8th spot. The Miami is also at 26-30, much like the Pistons, but they're in the 9. They're on the outside looking in. But the Heat fall in at 9. Orlando falls in at 10 at 27-32. They've won more games than the Pistons and the Heat, but they've played more games and have more losses. So they sit at 27-32. They just had that trade for Markelle Fultz last week. But the Wizards, they come in at 11 at 24-34. And then this is where you see the drop. You have the Hawks at 19-39. You have the Chicago Bulls at 14-44. You have the Cavs at 12-46. And then you have the Knicks at 11-47. And they are basically tied with the Suns for the worst records in the league, or for the worst teams in the league. But number 1 in the West, you have the Golden State Warriors. They're now 2 games up on the Denver Nuggets, who are sitting at the 2. Golden State sits at 41-16, and the Nuggets sit at 39-18. Oklahoma City checks in at 3 at 37-20. The top 4 have pretty much not changed. Denver and Golden State pretty much have been changing here the last couple weeks. But Oklahoma City sits at 3. The Portland Trailblazers sit at 4, just 3 games behind Oklahoma City. The Rockets have now moved up to 5. I've talked about their slow start, but they've got things rolling. James Harden, he's scoring like 40 points a game at this point. So they've finally righted the ship. They're in the 5 spot. Utah Jazz sit at 6 at 32-25. Spurs, we're not used to seeing them here, but this low, they're at the 7th seed right now. They're flirting with disaster a little bit right now. The LA Clippers check in at 8 at 32-27. And then the Sacramento Kings are in the next spot behind the Clippers at 9. They are 3 games over 500. They're at 30-27. The Lakers are 1 game under 500. They sit at 28-29, and they're in the 10th spot. The Timberwolves are 3 games under 500 at 27-30. They're in the 11. Then comes the Dallas Mavericks at 26-31. The Pelicans at 26-33. The Memphis Grizzlies at 26-36, and the Phoenix Suns check in at 11-48, the worst team in the West. But pretty much down through the Pelicans, from the Pelicans to the Clippers, they all still have a shot. Obviously, the Pelicans are 6 games back of the Clippers, but they also have a chance there. And there's a mix of teams at sub 500, below 500 that still have a chance in the East. But that's pretty much it for the NBA standings headed into the All-Star break. Also, all the All-Star stuff for the NBA, you can watch that on TNT. I believe it's been on there for the last several years. Excuse me. All that will be on TNT. I guess I'll go ahead and look at NCAA some bracketology real quick before I go. I'll just look at the teams. When was this updated? This was updated yesterday. So this is as of yesterday. So the last 4 buys, the last 4 teams to get in without having to play in a play-in game are currently Clemson, UCF, Seton Hall, Minnesota. The The last 4 in are Arizona State, Temple, Oklahoma, and Indiana. Your first 4 out are Florida, Utah State, Butler, Belmont, and the next 4 after those out is St. Mary's, San Francisco, Arkansas, and Davidson. A team that we've seen on the bubble here lately is Alabama. They're now currently out of the danger zone. They have to play Florida tomorrow, I know. Um, they've moved off the bubble, but that's really the only team that I've seen move off the bubble that's been in there recently. Um, but the breakdown currently for teams in the tournament: the Big Ten has 9, the ACC has 9, Big 12 has 8, the SEC has 7, the American has 4, Big East has 4, and Pac-12 have 2. That's pretty much the conference breakdown as of now, and this is all just his bracketology, but he's usually pretty close. And then you always have the teams, the last 4 teams, they're pretty much toss-ups. You could really pick any of those teams, and they're deserving of that spot. I'll check the rankings headed into the weekend, too. Just real quick, Tennessee is still your number 1 team in the nation. I'm going by the AP. Tennessee is still your number 1 team in the nation. Duke's number 2. I don't think anybody's arguing that those are the top 2 teams currently in basketball. Duke had that 23-point comeback the other night. It looked like they were done. They were down by 23 with less than 10 minutes left, I believe it was. And then, as Zion said, Coach K looked at him and said, "I don't coach losers." And that's basically what righted the ship. And they stormed back and beat Louisville on Tuesday. Gonzaga's 3. Virginia had fallen to 4. Obviously, these come out every Monday, so Kentucky stood pat at 5 this week. Michigan moved up to 6. Nevada fell to 7. You had North Carolina at 8. You had Houston crack the top 10 at 23-1. They checked in at number 9. Marquette, they were 10 the week before. They were 10 this week as well. Michigan State was 11, is 11. Purdue is 12. Villanova is 13. Kansas is 14. Texas Tech 15. Louisville at 17-7 was 16. Florida State 17. Kansas State 18. LSU 19. LSU had the huge win over the Kentucky Wildcats on Tuesday with a late tip-in at the buzzer in overtime. So LSU will be moving up this week as long as they take care of business tomorrow. Wisconsin Badgers at 20, Iowa at 21, Virginia Tech, they took a huge slide. They fell 11 spots to 22. Iowa State was 23, Maryland was 24, and Buffalo just barely hanging in the top 25 at 20-3. They checked in at 25. So that was the rankings for this week. That's the rankings headed into this weekend. Obviously, it'll change next week like it does every week, depending on how people do. Excuse me. Ooh, my throat. But I believe that's where I will leave this one off. I know I only made it 50 minutes in this one. I know I only made it 50 minutes. But I talk too fast. I need to talk a little slower. But I'll leave it right there. I hope you enjoyed this stream. I'll be back Monday. Hopefully plenty enough goes on, or I watch enough to where I can just talk in depth, and hopefully you guys will listen to me. But that's where I'll leave this stream off. But yeah, this has been Spittin' Sports. This has been my third stream here, my third live podcast here on Twitch. For everybody that stopped by and checked it out, I appreciate it. I hope you drop a like, come back for some more on Monday. Right now, like I said, I can only do it twice a week is really when I only have time to do this currently. And again, I apologize for no stream Monday, but I should be back. I'll be back on this Monday to talk to you all, 10 a.m. That's the time I'm going to leave it for now. If you missed most of the stream, head over to the YouTube. It's down in the title below. Head on over to YouTube to watch the full stream, or I will break down the topics I believe should be broken down into their own topic. But this has been Spittin' Sports with Lamar from the 256 Sports Desk. I am Casey Lamar. I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday.